Weighing anchor in an engineless boat can sometimes be difficult in windy conditions and when the water depth is more than, say, about 15 feet or so. This is because you don't have an engine to push you up against the wind in any wave action. So hauling that anchor up short can be quite a bit of work. So one thing you can do is to sail up on your anchor. And so what I'm doing here is just letting the boat sail. I sheeted the mainsail and just letting her sail on starboard tack. And with the anchor, I haven't taken in any anchor road, so she's just sailing up on her anchor. And at some point, the anchor road will pull her over onto the other tack, as it's doing right now. Now, as she comes around onto port tack in this case, the anchor road will fall slack, and that's when you can take in some of the road. And then you're just going to repeat the procedure. And the number of times you repeat the procedure will vary. In this case, we're going to do it 3 times here. So now we're on port tack, and the anchor is now off on our port side. And again, we're going to sail up on the anchor. And then the anchor road is going to become taut, and once again it's going to pull her around on the other tack. And when it does that, we're going to take in some slack road, which is what I'm doing right now. So once again, as we take in the anchor road, it's pulling her back around on the other tack, back onto starboard tack. And we're going to repeat this procedure one more time. You can see the mainsail's full, and she's beginning to sail up on the anchor once again. So once again, the anchor road is coming tight, and it's going to begin pulling her over onto port tack. And in this case, we wanted to get off on port tack. So we want to make our last tack with the anchor set the opposite tack that we want to take off on. Because when that anchor road comes taut and I begin pulling in on the anchor road, it's going to pull her over onto port tack. So this is also a method that you can assure that you're going to get off on the preferred tack in case you have an obstruction on one side. Now in this case, we've got the anchor road short enough so that we're just about down to 1-to-1 scope. So as we take away sailing, unless the anchor is really buried, we should break the anchor out as we sail over it. And indeed, the anchor is broken out and hauled up, and away we go. So we're headed around to Bay de Moldavar, which is a nice quiet little anchorage on the east side of Culebra. And we just came through a rain squall and about to turn downwind into a little bit of a tricky entrance into the anchorage. Bay de Moldavar is not only quiet and scenic, it also has no Wi-Fi reception, and I find very poor cell phone reception. So in other words, a perfect center for detoxing from internet and social media exposure. So we're coming up on our turn here into Bay de Moldavar, and you can barely see that's an island just off the port bow there, and we have to make our turn pretty soon. But it's almost it just melts right in with the mainland behind it, so it's very difficult to make out. So we're seeing bottom here, so I'm getting pretty nervous. Just trusting my charts. But once inside, it is quite a nice anchorage, and you can see the reef there, which cuts out all the ocean swell. So you get a breeze, but the water is completely flat. So I just spent 2 nights in Bay de Moldavar, and now I'm on my way back into Dewey. the anchorage we just tacked out of and weighed anchor from 2 days ago. Except that things have changed a little bit. It's gotten a lot more crowded. There's a whole bunch of boats anchored here now. So that's going to make finding our anchoring spot a little bit more of a challenge. So picking your spot in an anchorage is always a challenge. And the more crowded the anchorage is, the more challenging it gets. And of course, it's especially challenging when you're doing it under sail. And while this anchorage has got quite a few boats, there's still plenty of room here. In a more crowded anchorage, I would typically take a dry run, meaning I would sail right past the place where I intend to drop my anchor and have a look around from that place. Because a lot of times your perspective can be deceiving. When you're not actually at the place you think you're going to anchor, you're just looking at it several rows of boats away. And sometimes it can look like there's a lot of room there, and then you get there and you realize there's not that much room. And the anchoring spot is not what you thought. But here there's plenty of room. So I picked my spot, which is right behind this island packet, upwind of me. And as you saw, I wagged the rudder back and forth because I had a little too much speed. And so I wanted to slow her down. So down comes the mainsail, and then we quickly scurry forward to lower the anchor. As you can see, she's starting to fall off the wind now, so I want to get that anchor down while I'm still at the place where I want to drop the anchor. And so we still got a little bit of mainsail up there, and she's starting to sail over toward the boat, which is on our starboard side, but now we're headed straight for. But the anchor should fetch up before we actually run into the boat. And obviously this is where you want to have an anchor you can believe in. And indeed, the anchor digs right in. We come up head to wind, and we're actually right where I want it to be. That doesn't always happen. So this was a successful anchor drop. So we are planning to head northwest to the Florida Keys here. And this is turning into somewhat of an extended stay in Culebra. Mainly because we got a very active weather pattern. Today is Sunday, January 20th, and as you can see, we got a very strong front coming off the east coast. And that's not going to affect us much down here in Culebra. But as you can see, as we get close to Florida, if we were close to Florida, we'd be encountering northwest winds in the 20 to 30 knot range, dead on the nose, pretty much dead on the nose. And so that's something we want to avoid. And more generally, in the Bahamas, this time of year in the middle of the winter, it is subject to these so-called northers, which are just the strong northerly component winds behind cold fronts coming off the east coast in the winter time. So that's something we want to watch for and try to avoid on this passage, which should take us a little over a week. So let's march ahead forward a little bit here. Monday. Now, as you can see, the front passes, and then the winds are generally going to veer. See that they were northwesterly, now they've come northeast by Monday, and they're about 15 knots. So the sailing there is not bad, and we're just going to have down here, we're just going to have light easterly winds. So Monday wouldn't be a bad day to leave. However, as we get into Tuesday, now these winds are going to come east-northeast, but as you can see, they're going to be quite strong. We're looking again at the 20 to 30 knot range. And as we get into Wednesday, even more than that. You can see around the Turks and Caicos here, we got 25 gradient wind, so that's going to be 20 to 30, if not light gale, 25 to 35 knots. And that's basically what I had last year when I did this passage to Miami. You have favorable wind, but a lot of it. And I would like to try to avoid that if possible. So right now I'm scrubbing that Monday departure. Now Thursday, all right, we got sort of moderate southeasterly winds, and as you can see, we got another system coming off the east coast here. Looks like another strong low on a cold front. So let's see what happens in the wake of that. So if we get into Friday, and you can see the northerly winds are filling in behind the front, not too strong. And so Thursday is a possibility. I mean, we got pretty good wind, but let's march forward a little bit. But on Sunday, we got another big system coming here. So as I say, very active weather pattern here. And now this is a bit far out in the forecast, so take this with a grain of salt. But that's a massive, that looks like a nor'easter, a fairly massive low. Sustained 40 knots, so that's a strong gale, probably gale to storm force. If you were anywhere north of about 25 north, but we wouldn't want to be anywhere near the Florida Keys either, because then we'd have winds on the nose 30 knots. We'd basically have gale force winds on the nose. However, let's look at a Saturday departure. So we leave Culebra here, and basically got 15 knots of wind, so that's pretty good. And we're going to head kind of in a northwest direction. So we make it up about here by Sunday. We've still got nice southeasterlies. We get to Monday, and we get up here somewhere. We still got moderate southerlies. And then as we get to Tuesday, it looks like we're going to cross the front. We're going to get into a light to moderate northerlies, and that's as far as it goes out. So hopefully there's nothing behind this last big front storm system. So Saturday, Sunday departure, and today's Sunday, so that'd be a week from now, 6 days from now. That's a possibility. And just looking here, I don't see, again, this is way out in the forecast, but it looks like just a big area of high pressure building in. So hopefully that'll just give us moderate easterlies, a period of moderate easterlies, and to take us onward to through the Bahamas and onto the Florida Keys. But that's a ways out in the forecast, and we'll keep watching it and see how things develop.